Hey, welcome back to the booth. It's Grandpa here with some gear talk. Okay, today I want to talk about this piece of gear. I don't talk about recording gear very often, but I was really impressed with this for a whole bunch of reasons. So I'm just going to go over what it does, why I like it, and how it compares with other stuff out there. So this is the kind of thing you have on your desktop, and it controls the volume of your monitors and your headphones. So the main benefit of one of these studio control or monitor control devices is that generally you have, a couple of different monitor sources. You could switch back and forth so you get to hear things differently. And these things generally have a bunch of audio input, so you can plug in some other sound or a guitar or something like that. You've got a bunch of inputs and outputs, and it just allows you to kind of manage everything from one device. So this is the Behringer Studio L. I was really impressed with it because honestly, I had another piece of Behringer gear kind of like this. It was called the Control 2, and it was not good. It was not a great piece of gear. It was a bit noisy. I had some ground hum problems. I was really not impressed. And I find Behringer, or however you pronounce it, in general, it's really hit and miss. They make some great gear, and they make some stuff that I have found to be not really studio quality. But this thing I was really impressed with. So for the longest time, I had the Mackie Big Knob, the original version of that. Built like a tank, really good, allows you to control different monitors and have different input sources and feed headphones. And it was great. It sounded good, and it worked really well for a long time, and then finally it died. Now Mackie has the new version of the Big Knob. They've actually got 3 different versions. They got like a passive version and then a regular version and an extended one. They work pretty well, but if you read the reviews, a lot of people find them lacking in build quality. Some people complain of the noise issues. So I wasn't really sure about that, but I wanted to get something like that. Now, the main reason I wanted to go for something like that is it has Talkback. Talkback usually has a built-in mic and allows you to talk directly to an artist through headphones. And you mainly use that in a recording studio where you're not just sitting in front of your laptop, but you have somebody in another room, an isolation booth, remotely, whatever, and it allows you to talk to them and say, hey, can you give me another take with a little more energy? Or, hey, I like that, but can you go a little wilder with your guitar solo? It's just a way to communicate from room to room. There's only a handful of devices out there that have Talkback. In a standard recording interface or a sound card, you can control the volume of one pair of speakers, the volume of your headphones, and then the input level. But units with Talkback are a lot rarer. So for instance, there's the Solid State Logic SSL series of like the SSL2, great little thing for controlling your monitor volume, all that kind of thing. But in order to get Talkback, you have to step up to the SSL12, which is like quite a few times the price. So this thing, it has Talkback. There's a larger version called the XL that has control 3 different sets of speakers. Each of them has their own attenuator, so you can match the volume if they're different types of speakers. And then you've got multiple input sources. Some of them are stereo. One of the key things about this is it's cheap. It's like $160. And it's also a sound card. So it has Midas preamps. If you know anything about live sound, Midas is a legend, a staple. They have really good mic preamps. So this thing is a sound card that has really high-end mic preamps. They're 192 kilohertz, 24-bit. So they're like really good quality. And the sound is amazing. It's very transparent. It also has 48-volt phantom power if you're using a condenser microphone like this. So pretty impressive. The preamps are ultra low noise. The whole signal path is really transparent and clean, much better than some of the gear like this that I've used. Also got VCA technology. This is actually a voltage-controlled amplifier with this big knob. It gives you much more precise sound control. You have a couple of different headphone outputs, and each has their own volume, which is great if you've got someone recording in another room. Maybe they have a different type of headphone. That way you can match the levels, so what you're hearing in your control room and what they're hearing in the studio when they're delivering their performance is what they want. Because if someone's playing drums, the volume level of their instrument is quite loud, you got to get their headphones pretty loud. Where if you're sitting listening as a studio engineer or a producer, you don't want the headphones too loud because you get ear fatigue over time. So that's really useful. And I'll tell you, I don't think I have ever used an interface like this that has headphone amplifiers that are so powerful. They're almost too loud. Like I've almost got the headphone volume off. But if you've got like really old headphones that you just love or some that have odd impedance and stuff, you may need a bunch of power to drive them. And these headphones will definitely do that. I just was blown away at how good this thing sounds for the price. There's also stuff like the PreSonus Monitor Station version 2 out there. It's really great. It's got Talkback, but it doesn't include a sound card for plugging in a microphone. Then there's the Solid State Logic SSL12 that I mentioned. It's got a bunch of inputs and it's got Talkback, but it's like $500. The new Mackie Big Knob, $250 for the medium size and $350 for the larger one. I just don't feel that confident about them, just reading the reviews I've heard about them. Sure, you can buy an Apollo Twin as a sound card and a mic preamp or whatever. It's going to set you back like $1,200. And you know, it's just a different level of audio recording. But the quality of this thing is amazing. It's mainly for the guy that has a home studio. You're working on the box out of your DAW, but you want to be able to plug in a mic. And because it has Talkback, you can talk to someone if you go to a remote building to record into that has good acoustics and stuff. You can communicate with the talent, and that's really useful. Most sound cards obviously don't have that. But the thing that they have, like for like the Focusrite Scarlett or any of those other things, is they're small and portable. You throw them in your backpack. Now, this thing is not bus powered. Bus powered means you just plug it into your laptop. As long as you've got battery on your laptop, you can go and do stuff. So you want to take a mic, a laptop, and a sound card and throw them in your backpack and go record somewhere. You can't do that with this because it has to be plugged into 120 volt power. The Focusrite Scarlett, I think the new version of it, they're always around $200 or something. They sound fine, very simple, but they don't have these extra features like Talkback and multiple monitor controls. I mean, there's the Apogee Symphony, great interface, but once again, it's like $1,500. So the reality of this is it's super affordable and it sounds amazing. And that's why I'm doing this video, because I'm really impressed. Now, why do you want these controls of different sets of speakers? Well, I'll tell you a trick from having worked as a studio engineer and producer. You always want to have at least 2 pairs of speakers to listen. You have your main speakers with your sub and whatever, and that's where you make all your critical decisions. And you want to have great sounding monitors that are dialed for the room that you're in, you know, the control room. But you also want a second ear, an alternate, to give your ears a break, because if you listen to the same thing over and over and over again, you lose your perspective. As soon as you switch to a different pair of monitors, all of a sudden the sound is different again. And for a few minutes, you have clearer insight to maybe what's missing. You know, I remember recording in the late 70s and the 80s, because that's how old I am. In every studio, there was 3 sets of speakers. There was the big voice of God that sounded amazing, usually Uris or JBLs. Then there was the Yamaha NS10s. Everyone used them as a reference because they reproduce vocal very clearly, mid-range. And then we had what was called the Aura tone. It was a little mono speaker. We called it the horror tone. They sounded terrible. But I'll tell you, having a terrible sounding speaker or pair of speakers is really great. It will help your mixing. Why is that? Because if you take one of these smaller pairs of speakers, like for years, people used the Minimus 7s. I think they were Fostex or something. They sounded terrible, but they were the most popular restaurant speaker in America. So everyone used those as a reference for a while for mixing because they sound so bad. If you can get your mix to sound great on a pair of these smaller speakers or on a mono speaker, it's going to sound amazing when you put it through a big sound system, especially for mixing the level of your bass, like your bass guitar or synth bass or whatever. If you can make that bass speak so you can hear clearly every note and it sounds good and it's balanced on a small speaker, and then when you turn it on to the big speaker, of course it's going to sound amazing. But fine-tuning and dialing things in on a shitty sounding pair of speakers is always going to improve your mixes. I don't know if you can see it over here. This is a Black Lion Revolution. It sounds amazing. Is this thing going to sound as good as that in terms of as an interface? Maybe not, right? But this is like $500 or $600. This is something that is affordable, jack of all trades, feels really well built. $160. There's a bigger version that's like $180. And if you're someone that once in a while records with another person in another room, they're recording a guitar part, they're, drums, percussion, a saxophone, really then is when you want that. A talkback switch so you can communicate, and a second headphone volume so you can control your volume and their headphone volume independently. And I think for this price, when you hear how good it sounds, can't go wrong. Like I say, compared to its competition out there, I think this one, it's a no-brainer. Anyway, that's all I got for today. Thanks a lot. See you next time.